Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be doing a language learning planner flip through for January and kind of just go through, what my intentions are with language learning this year, what my goals are, what I plan to accomplish or what I hope to accomplish, and just show you what my process is. So last year I was using a Hobonichi Weeks to do language tracking, but this year I wanted to go back into the Muji weekly planner, which I had used in 2023. I think this might be the planner that I would like to use for all my future language learning in the years to come. Mostly because I really like that there's enough space on the right side to, just put random notes and important language things. And then there's also enough space here to do your tracking and stuff. I think it's like a perfect format for me, language wise. But also I was inspired in 2023 by Lindy Bertez. She's one of the polyglot YouTubers / content creators that I really look up to in the language learning community, and I've really learned a lot about language learning from her, and she has a lot of planner videos as well. But yeah, no, I bought this planner in Dusseldorf when I visited in December for the Christmas markets, and they had like fun stamps and stuff, which the Sydney store in Australia doesn't do anymore. So it was really nice to be able to just customize it a little bit by putting stamps on it. But I'll take you through it now. So my approach has changed a bit. So for the monthly pages, what I used to do, but then dropped and then never touched ever again, was in the monthly pages, I put what I did and what I studied for that day. And I think this is something that a lot of language planners have, or at least a lot of YouTubers that I watch, they employ this method of, tracking on the monthly view what things they did. And for me, I had tried this 2 years ago, and I also tried it last year for a bit, but I really never looked at the monthly page and was like, oh, great. I did Duolingo for Spanish, and then I did Wanikani for Japanese. Like, great. Like, I think it didn't really give me any value seeing that information in the month. So this year I decided to switch it up, sorry. And I just put like random phrases, like really helpful, or like phrases that you would hear a lot in the language that you're learning. Common phrases. I can't speak English. So I would write, so my focus language this month, or at least every month, and while I live here in the Netherlands, is Dutch. So I've been writing sentences that sound really common that I think I would be hearing a lot, and I'd be writing it down on this monthly. And these are sentences that I've usually mined, like sentence mined from like, if I watch the news, for example, I usually watch with subtitles because I still have a lot of trouble fully comprehending Dutch when it's spoken. So I really need subtitles. That or when I'm on Close Master and they do fast track, and so there's a lot of sentences that are very frequent or very common that you would hear. So yeah, I've been writing those down here, and I think I find that to be much more valuable to me because I'm constantly coming back to write more stuff here, and I'll be reading these again. So it's kind of, in a way, reinforcement learning because I'm always seeing it whenever I write a new sentence, and it's a lot nicer to look at, I reckon, because it's sentences in the language that you're learning, and I feel it's a bit more stimulating. But I do have on the side here like what my monthly goals are, and what languages I'll be focusing on. It's already a few days into February, so I haven't really done my February goals, but I'll get around to it at some point. But yeah, this is what I've been doing for the monthly, and I really like it. I find that it's nice to look at. So yeah, that's what I've been doing for the monthly. I'm gonna assume it's mostly gonna be Dutch for this year. So yeah, the weekly. So I said this in my previous video, but I misunderstood, or I couldn't read basically, and I planned for a week where it wasn't the actual week, because I only bought this planner in the last week of December, but I ended up writing in it when it was still the November / early December pages. But anyway, yeah, so I bought it on the 27th of December. So this is kind of the first. I'm still experimenting. I mean, I've been pretty consistent with how I like my layouts to look, but I really wanted to experiment a bit more as well. So for the first week, I did a language recap for 2024 and all the languages that I studied. So I only really studied 3, which is fine because while I do want to become a polyglot, I have some really like concrete goals that I have to reach. Like I have to be B1 by the end of the 3-year integration period, for example, for Dutch. So Dutch has really been my main priority, and I'll be taking the B1 test sometime this year. Tests, there's like 5 of them. I have to start studying for those. It's not going to look great if I don't have B1 by the end of the 3-year integration period. So yeah, I use the app Toggle, which I also found from Lindy Botes, and I've been using pretty consistently since 2023 or 2022. And it's my language tracking app. So last year I did 138 hours of Dutch, which is awesome. That's so many hours. And then for Japanese, I did 37. And then for Tagalog, I did 14 hours. So Tagalog is kind of like it's my native tongue, but I don't speak it here. And it's also, I'm a 2nd-generation immigrant. So what that means is most children born as 2nd-generation immigrants tend to be receptively bilingual, which means that you fully comprehend and you fully understand the like your parent language, but you can't really speak it. And since moving to the Netherlands, I wanted to take active steps to better my Tagalog speaking. I can speak, I should give myself more credit. I can speak in Tagalog, but since moving here for the past like 2 years, there's not really anyone that I can converse with in Tagalog. So last year I made like a effort to try and, learn more about Tagalog, right? So yeah, anyway. So the layout that I have kind of been following for the past few weeks. So I have the left page split into 2, and then I have on the left side all the tasks that I ritually want to do, like habitually, not ritually. I don't think ritually is a word. So this is a video about learning languages, but I'm showing that my English is not so great. Yeah, habitually want to do. So every day I want to be doing Close Master, and on Mondays to Fridays I watch the Dutch news in Easy Dutch, which is really cool that they do that. Yeah, and everything that I want to do concretely as a ritual or as a habit, I put it on the left side. On the right side, I'm still kind of figuring out what I want to do. It's kind of wishy-washy, but I put a lot of sentences that I'd like to remember, which is different from the sentences that I put here, in the sense that maybe they're a bit grammatically challenging for me, or I noted it down because I want to remember it for a specific reason. That, or just like something interesting. So here it was like New Year's, or like New Year's Eve, New Year, So I put it in all the languages that I know. But yeah. And then this year I've committed to doing a weekly prompt. So I've written out 52 prompts at the back. I'll show it as I keep going through the planner. But I want to commit to writing just like a little bit of something in my focus language every single week. So that's kind of how I've been approaching my language learning planning this year. So it looks pretty consistent. It's pretty much the same. I also added this guidance for the week. So these are things that I want to be able to do, or like language learning activities that I would like to somehow incorporate into this week, into the week that I'm planning for. So for example, like reading from the news app 3 times, vocabulary maps, watching an episode or something. So these are not like strict. I don't have to do them, but if I feel like doing them, it'll be nice, right? Because it's every kind of immersion really helps with language learning. And then here I have just like a bunch of sentences. So there's a lot of sentences when you're learning a language that might be grammatically challenging, or maybe there's some kind of rule in the language that you need to remember. So for me, so net als is just like in Dutch. And in principle, I know this when I hear it, but I have trouble reciting it or, replaying it for myself. And there's also just like a bunch of words and phrases that I'd like to remember. So, yeah. So in some of these sentences, I usually write them down because there's some kind of rule in the language that I want to remember. And then my weekly writing, I should get these checked by my partner who is Dutch, but I have a bit of feedback anxiety. Yeah, so it's basically the same again. I think I wrote some Japanese. Oh, because I did some Japanese stuff for week 3. But I've been using my fountain pens to write my weekly prompts, and it's made me more excited to write my weekly prompts because I really like writing with my fountain pens. But also, as a side note, this planner, actually, it's really cheap, but the paper quality is really good, and it takes fountain pens really well. So if you're looking for like a budget-friendly option for a planner, but you'd like to use fountain pens, I'd really recommend looking at the Muji line of planners and journals because they're really good for the price. Yeah, I've also wanted to include little illustrations, and I found these on YouTube. So there's a lot of Japanese. The Japanese planner community is massive, like understandably so. But they also have a lot of videos on like quick and easy illustrations with like your stationery. So there's quite a few videos about how to do illustrations with the like Kuretake Zig or like some other Japanese brand of this dot marker, the color dot markers. They have lots of videos on these, so I watched a bunch of them. And if you want to watch them, I'll put the what you need to search, because it's like簡単イラストor something, and you'll be able to find those. And they have really cute. It's really easy, and they just really brighten up the look of the planner. Yeah, it's the same. So maybe there's some things I write here that I have done that are not planned. So here, for example, I wrote Learn Dutch with Kim, scheidbare werkwoorden. So I follow Learn Dutch with Kim, and I used her course to learn about separable verbs. So I just wrote that on this side so that I can be like, oh yeah, that's when I learned that. Yeah, and if it's like I watch something like the Keuringsdienst van Waarde. I'm sorry if my pronunciation is really bad. I get really anxious when I have to talk Dutch, in Dutch. But yeah, if I watch a TV show, for example, I'll also write it here. Yeah. Yeah, so there was a mini immersion, so I also participated in mini immersion. But it's pretty standard. Like I think I might keep going with this format. And since it's looking, yeah, I also change up the pen that I use, mostly out of convenience, like whatever pen that I take out of my pencil case first. So I think these previous weeks I was using the preppy fountain pen, but for last week I was using the Uniball. Yeah, just like the regular 0.38, or is it 0.35? 0.38. Yeah, and it's been pretty consistent. So for this week, or last week, sorry, it was a recipe, so I didn't need as much space, and then I did more sentence mining and sentence learning on this side. And then it's this week, and it's actually Wednesday, so I've been pretty lazy with it. I think because I've been really busy this week, so it's been pretty empty. But I have been doing Dutch, or I have been doing my habit activities. I just haven't tracked it and noted it here. But yeah, that's kind of what it has looked like in January so far. I'm really enjoying it. It's really nice to look back on because it's quite full. But I do have stuff at the back that I've written. So I tried to do a language learning bingo for this year. I have one, like a general bingo for things I want to accomplish this year. But for language learning, I feel like it's a bit too much, so I just put a few things. So I really want to reach B2 Dutch. I do want to do the B1 exams, but I also want to see, like, I feel like I'm pretty much at the B1 level already, and I just need to study for the exams. But I want to be able to also reach B2 if that's possible, and that would be nice if I can. Minimum 20 hours of Japanese speaking. So I don't know if I've said this before, but I've been studying Japanese for like a really long time, since first year uni basically. And I've been I always want to keep up my fluency in the language because I've studied it for so long, and I really love Japanese as well as a language. It's one of my favorite languages. But I'm not really in a situation where I'm using that Japanese all the time. So you basically have to keep using the language if you want to remember it right. So this year, since I also managed to get a job, I'll be able to pay and do like language. I can do italki again, which is basically how I've kept up my language skills in Japanese for so long. I also have some Japanese friends here in the Netherlands as well, but I think like a dedicated time every week to learn or to practice speaking is really good. Yeah. Read 3 books in target language. I know it's really small for 1 year, but I read a lot of books aside. So aside from, you know, just language learning books, I've been reading The Little Prince in Dutch recently, because I think The Little Prince is kind of like the blueprint for like any book like it's the book to read for language learning. So I read it in Japanese. I actually haven't read it in English, but it's a good story. It's a devastating story. But anyway, yeah. Pick up a new/old language. So I've dabbled in other languages. So I lived in South Korea for a bit, so I can read Korean. I think most people, like if you learn Hangul, it's really easy to read Korean, but knowing Korean, different story. So I'd say like I have a good beginner's understanding of Korean, and I can really get by a lot since it has a lot of overlap with Japanese as well. And I like that. For me, that would be an old language because I've dabbled in it before and I've studied it, but I didn't pursue it. Like I didn't keep going with it. And the same with Spanish. I did pick up Spanish for a little bit before, and then I dropped it because I was, doing Dutch, for example. And new languages, I've always wanted to learn Cantonese and Vietnamese. So that could also be, if that's in the cards for this year, I could start learning one of those. Yeah. And then learn Korean via Japanese. So I've only learned all the languages that I've known through English or through like that language. So like when I was learning Japanese, I was learning in Japanese. When I was learning Korean, it was in Korean, because I was living in those countries at the time. So it's not, they don't teach it like in English. So with Japanese, I feel like my Japanese is good enough for me to be able to learn a new language, especially if it's Korean and I already know Korean, like the basics of it. So I'm not gonna fall into the pit, the trap of, Japanese, like, I think one problem with like Japanese is that the katakana is quite limited in the sounds, but I already know Korean sounds, for example, so I'm not gonna have the problem of speaking Korean through a Japanese like accent, for example. But yeah, it's really, I'm hoping to do that this year. And then for this one, I started the year with, and then I just want to see like what languages I end up going in and out of this year besides Japanese and Dutch, because Japanese and Dutch for me are pretty the consistent ones that I'm always going to do every single year. And then just some like rudimentary goals that are split up into quarters, because I feel like that's much more achievable. So unofficially reaching B1 Dutch, logging speaking practice hours, reading a book in Dutch, and writing weekly prompts. And then I wrote this all out by myself. So I went on a bunch of websites to try and find a variety of prompts, weekly writing prompts. So they're kind of mishmashed. So there's one for every week, mishmashed from a bunch of websites and Discords and stuff that I'm a part of that do some kind of weekly writing. I just wanted some prompts. So this week it's describe an image. So that'll be exciting. So I tried to vary it. So some are quite simple, some are quite hard. I wanted to try and utilize like being able to speak in the past tense, for example, and then future tense, and being able to like use the language as it's in its entirety, if that makes sense, and not only just speaking in the present, for example, because I think that's a good way to practice the various tenses and stuff in a language. Language book tracking. I've been trying to get through the Little Prince for so long in Dutch, but I don't know why for Dutch it's not really hitting me the same. But I'm hoping to get through it. So I'm hoping to just track. This is just the chapters, and then I'll color it in once I've finished the chapter. I think I'm up to chapter 5, so this is not up to date. Language learning resources. So I'm just writing here what resources I want to remember, what I'm using, and what I find helpful. So I did put Cantonese and Vietnamese and Spanish as well. I don't even know if I'm gonna get to those this year, but I'm leaving it in. And then I just want to do level tracking. So I'm gonna do it. The colors are gonna change per like quarter, I guess. Quarter to like, I want to see what my improvement is. And I've kind of tracked these using my Dutch class evaluation level. So I'm technically A2 right now, because I finished the VU, the university courses, and I want to keep tracking like my progress. and it looks really pretty. But also, this is not my idea. I want to credit Tanya Benavente, who is another YouTuber, polyglot YouTuber that I watch, who also has quite a few videos on language planning. Yeah, and then this is also just tracking Dutch resources. So I'm in the A1 to A2 Learn Dutch with Kim class, and I do that on the side, even though technically I'm A2. It's just I already bought the course before completing A2, so I'm just going through it. And there's actually a lot of things here that they go through that were not that Kim goes through that was not in my Dutch classes. So I think it's pretty helpful all the same. And then this was the textbook that I used for Dutch at university. So I wanted to keep going with it because I didn't finish the textbook. And then here I'm just tracking what mini immersion activities I did during the mini immersion weekends. So I think I did all of these, and I just write down what I did. Yeah, and that's it. So yeah, I think it's going pretty well this year, and I'm like quite excited to, keep going. And also, if you see incorrect Dutch, no, you didn't. I mean, I appreciate the feedback if you can read it, but I feel a bit embarrassed. So yeah, I hope that this was a good video, an informative one, and it might help you with your own language learning. I know that all the videos that I watch from Lindy and Tanya have also really helped shape my language learning journey. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a lovely week. Bye.